Welcome back to Betcha Didn't Know That, a podcast where we talk about everything that you probably didn't know about. Today, we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic. I'm your host, Zeke, and let's get right into that. Today, we're going to be talking about food dye and high fructose corn syrup and its negative effects on the body. Most of you probably have had a snowball before, like the tasty cakes that you can get from the store. And if you haven't, you probably know what I'm talking about. But these snowballs are like normally pink or green or whatever color, you name it. And that color is synthetic food dye. And also, the cakes are super sweet. And to do that, the company, I think it's by Hostess, if I remember correctly, they put high fructose corn syrup in it to get it to be super sweet. Now, for those of you that don't know exactly what high fructose corn syrup is, it is a synthetic corn sweetener that tastes almost exactly like sugar. Now, it is also cheaper to create, so companies like Hostess use this high fructose corn syrup in their food products to make it taste super sweet. And we have synthetic food dyes as well, which is cheaper than natural food dyes, to just make the synthetic food dye and put it in the snowball. There is a concerning side to using high fructose corn syrup and this synthetic food dye in so many foods. I mean, it's in foods like you can find high fructose corn syrup in meats because they have to sweeten the meat just a little tiny bit, and they use the high fructose corn syrup. And like dyes are in juices, or if you want to buy a Monster, there's probably a guarantee that you're going to have food dye and high fructose corn syrup in that drink there. And so because the synthetic food dye and high fructose corn syrup are found in so many things, it has a negative health effect on your body. There's a group of researchers. I mean, it looks like 15 researchers all came together to do a test on this red 40 food dye. And this is found in a science journal called Toxicology Reports. Sorry, my bad. And this research was done in the University of South Carolina. And these researchers were studying early onset colorectal cancer, EOCRC, which has been on the rise for the past 40 years. And most of the time, EOCRC is found in people who have obesity or drink too much alcohol or smoke too much. But there's a gap in that these researchers are looked into. This gap was these people that were around 20 to 30, and they were pretty healthy. And so it was confusing as to why these people were getting EOCRC, because they don't have these other problems associated with it. So these researchers thought that maybe it's diet, maybe diet's the problem. And so they looked into it and found that food dye actually might be a leading cause for EOCRC in these young folk. To find out if this was actually a correct assumption, the researchers got a whole bunch of mice, and they had a control group, a group that had a little bit of food dye and then a little more food dye, and then finally the last group had a ton of food dye in their water. And they gave them the water every day, right? And after a few weeks, these mice started to have problems with their microbiome. And the microbiome is really important because that's where you have lots of bacteria in there, that good bacteria. Without it, then you have stomach problems and get diarrhea or whatever, right? And so these mice, after a few weeks of consuming the red 40, actually had shown signs of a less healthy microbial environment in their microbiome. And they also were found to have inflammation in their colon and rectum, which is quite concerning. If we look at another group of researchers. This research came from the Egyptian Academic Journal of Biological Sciences, and this journal, or the section, had a lot of researchers from around Asia. We had people from the Department of Biology somewhere in Asia. I can't quite find exactly where that was. Someone part of the Department of Plant Research, and then some biology, another biology department, and then a department of medical. This group of researchers used onions rather than mice for their tests, and they put these onions into synthetic lemon flavor food dye, which it's pretty a yellow food dye. And they found that the onions didn't grow like the onion roots didn't grow quite as much as the onion that was just a control. So the onion with the control showed about 2 or 3 inches of growth in the roots, versus the other onion that was the onion that had 2% of this food dye found in the water only grew about 1 centimeter, or about 0.3 inches. So a drastic difference in the growth. These onions that were placed in the food dye water actually were found to have chromosomal abnormalities, such as C mitosis, which is incomplete chromosome condensation, lacquered chromosomes, which is a failure to attach to spindle fibers, and even some DNA mutations. So that's quite concerning. I mean, that us humans are consuming this on a daily basis. Moving on to the high fructose corn syrup side, high fructose corn syrup has also been found to cause significant health issues in people. It is a source of excess free fructose, which is the type of fructose that occurs when the fructose to glucose ratio are not equal. So it's around like 1 to 1 is where fructose and glucose ratios are equal. And this excess free fructose that high fructose corn syrup has been found to cause health issues like fructose malabsorption, asthma, autoimmune disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and other diseases similar to those that I just mentioned. Fructose malabsorption also tends to affect kids at lower doses than adults because they have just a much smaller body. Kids also have a lot more sweets like sodas or candy, which have high amounts of excess free fructose with a ratio of around 1.9 to 1 and 1.5 to 1, which is much, much higher than the amount that is normally considered safe, which is around 1.2 to 1. This is extremely concerning for both kids and adults alike because they're consuming so much of this. As I previously mentioned, high fructose corn syrup is in so many things. I mean, you have your meats, you have your sodas, you have your sweet drinks, you just anything. And so there's consuming so much high fructose corn syrup, which has the excess free fructose in high amounts. In conclusion, we do see that food dye and corn syrup alike have negative effects on the body. I mean, looking back at the research, we saw that the red 40 caused the mice to have internal problems with their stomach. The mice had the swelling in the rectum and colon. And then also with the onions, we saw that the onions failed to grow. The onion roots failed to grow because of the food diet. I mean, and they also had chromosomal abnormalities. Then the high fructose corn syrup also was shown to cause negative health effects like fructose malabsorption, and then asthma and inflammatory bowel disease and those other ones that I mentioned earlier. So overall, Food dye and corn syrup have been seen to cause problems in the body. And it's just interesting to see all this research that goes into the food dye and the corn syrup. Like, it's such a prominent thing for people to be having. I mean, it's everywhere. You go to the grocery store, you can just look to the right, you see food dye. To the left, you see food dye. Right in front of you, even down the aisle, just you'll see just food dye and corn syrup. So it's really interesting that all this research has gone into food dye, and that the natural alternatives are better for people to eat. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode. I mean, it was really cool to research all this stuff. I've spent like a few months on this research, so I hope you all enjoyed it. And make sure you stay tuned for the second episode of Bet You Didn't Know That. We're going to be talking about black holes and why they are important to study. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button and comment down below if you really are interested in me making another podcast episode. With all that being said, I'm your host, Zeke, and I bet you didn't know that.